landing a great job opportunity is sometimes very challenging. Breaking into tech and getting hired as a sales rep can be even harder. When I was applying to my first sales jobs, I also struggled with the unknown. What to expect, what the tech industry was like, and how do I break in? After years of being an SDR myself, I've decided to build something I wish I had in the beginning. My name is Stefan, and in the SDR Hire podcast, I interview successful SDRs and salespeople who share their stories straight from the trenches. Learn how they got their first job offers, how they succeed every day in their roles, and what makes them stand out in their organizations. We all have what it takes. We just need someone to remind us of the opportunity and give us a better chance for success. Let's get your next SDR gig. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the SDR Hire podcast. I have the pleasure of hosting Alex Nelson today as our guest. Alex is a very persistent and diligent person. Currently, he's working as an SDR at Panda Doc and is one of their top performers. Now, what's interesting about Alex and his journey is the fact that he's had more than 100 companies interview him and pass on him before being given a chance by Panda Doc, just for lacking one little thing: experience. More about Alex and his story we'll get to hear directly from him. Alex, welcome to the show.
Hey, Stefan, thanks for having me. I really appreciate, just being here.
Awesome, man. So I kind of teased a little bit about, your background, but can you tell us more about that journey of, how you came to be an SDR, how you broke into tech, and then how you kind of transitioned to Panda Doc? And I think the 100 company stories is a pretty neat one.
Yeah, so I coming out of college, I went into sales because it seemed like the best career option for me based on my strengths and honestly who was hiring at the time. I ended up working for a conference company that held executive level conferences for tech companies. And to be honest with you, the event that I was on, I didn't even know what it meant for the first month that I was working there. It was called Intelligent Automation Week. And I essentially learned a lot about companies that specialize in AI automation, and was very heavily on LinkedIn doing a BDR role without cold calling, essentially setting up calls for my AE at that company. Anyway, when COVID happened, the conference industry was obviously one that was going to suffer. So near the beginning, I was laid off, and I don't know if the number is specifically 100. It's kind of funny. I wrote that in a post. It's probably that high, but I didn't keep a tally at the time. I don't know if you'd blame me for that. Yeah,
Nah.
but yeah. So I was pretty much exclusively only applying to tech companies. That's where I saw myself. And yeah, around a year after that, I landed at Panda Doc.
That really sounds exciting, but how did you approach those tech companies? Did you have a strategy, or did you just start reaching out, blasting them, or how did that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I was just applying to any SDR role left and right on LinkedIn. I was working with recruiters, and I told recruiters specifically I wanted to work for tech companies. I remember in the interview processes when I had to make mock calls or prepare for them and whatnot, I really just didn't know what I was doing. So I would prepare what I thought would be the best thing to do. But really I was banking a lot on the interviews, on them just my answers to the questions rather than the mock performances I had to put on. Because I guess once I got into the role of cold calling, it became a lot easier.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's just a question of getting comfortable and doing it repeatedly until you kind of nail it. Okay, well, that sounds really really tiresome. I can
Was
imagine it was a crazy year. And so how did you kind of get in touch with PandaDoc? Was it through recruiters? Was it through your outreach? Did you apply to their roles?
yeah, so it was through a recruiter. Honestly, I owe her a post. I told her that I was gonna make a post thanking her at the time, and I forgot. But this recruiter hit me up, put me in contact with my who would become my manager, Jen and Troy, over at Panda Doc. But yeah, it was kind of random. It was like the luck of the draw, I suppose. Outside of just telling them I wanted to be in tech, I don't think that there was that much direction I had at the time.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, okay. And so you basically, ran through Panda Docs interviews quickly. Was there something specific they were looking for, or like how did it look like?
It was there was a few stages. There was definitely a get to know you stage, a mock call stage. Um, I don't really they were at the time when I was interviewing, they were building the outbound squad. So it's kind of interesting. Like there's definitely some sort of consistency between the people on the team. Like everybody's pretty positive and like when it comes to just supporting one another, we're very team oriented. But to answer that, I'm really not 100% sure if that's okay. I don't know specifically what quality they were looking for other than hunger, I suppose.
No, no, that's all good. And I mean, at least from my experience, companies that are not like that are serious about outbound sales programs, they usually actually look for specific, traits rather than skills. Although obviously there are, different experience levels that are needed for different companies, different roles. But like I've seen a lot of folks that don't have necessarily the experience get hired based on their grit and their determination, which obviously is something that you kind of showcase to them. And I guess that's what mostly help you land the job. So congrats on that, man. And so it's been a full year, I guess, since you started there, right?
Yeah, and it's been like around 2 months, and definitely just on that key piece in the interview, they remembered like one line, which was when I told them that whoever I was up against, I was going to make more calls than them, whatever the activity metric was. Um, so I guess that's what they were looking for, if anything. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. You basically from that point became an SDR for Panda Doc. And so, what was it like ever since you joined? Like, what has your day to day been like throughout this period?
Yeah, so I guess the ideology at Panda Doc, or at least on my team, was is pretty more call centric than I guess some organizations. I know that I came from a place where we only did social selling, only used LinkedIn. So my day to day, essentially, I would I would probably make between my first 6 months, I was probably making $120 a day on average. Um, Emailing in between, I didn't have as much success as with that early on, so there was definitely a period where I much more heavily emphasized the calling motion. Um, but I would just say like it's like the SDR job for what I know it right now is like 70% cold calling, or maybe a little bit less than that. A lot of it's research, and then there's definitely like a 10% of your day where you're doing personalized outreach over email. So
For
writing
sure.
skills do tend to come in handy sometimes.
Which actually was a good thing since you already had a bit of experience with that. However, it's really interesting that you basically didn't have any experience doing cold calls. And like, I'm curious, what was that transition like? Was it hard for you? I mean, you mentioned first 6 months was a kind of a struggle. Like, can you tell us more about that? Like, how did you make that transition towards being a heavy cold caller and
Yeah.
getting to that point of success?
So there was never any ifs, ands, or buts around how much I was gonna call. Like I expected myself to be bad. And I On the first day I was calling, I booked a meeting, I remember, and I remember thinking, "Oh, that was a lot easier than I expected." Like, look at all the people that I interviewed with that thought I couldn't do that, you know? But anyway, I got it pretty quickly. I always thought, or something that has been a strength of mine is like emotional intelligence, sensing like the room, and knowing how like to respond in certain situations. I always imagine myself like in a hole at the beginning of a cold call, and by saying the right things, you sort of dig yourself out, and if you create the opportunity, you're on the same level. And then at that point, it's all up. So, um, yeah, I would just say my mentality, I wasn't concerned about failing at it. I was just concerned about doing it enough so I learned, and um, at least they couldn't say that I haven't done it anymore.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Well, that's really interesting. I mean, that's something that every good BDR, SDR has, which is that, mindset of, it's fine if I fail. I just need to keep doing it until I do it good. And so I know that you have some, let's call them KPIs, or at least, metrics that guide you throughout this whole process. Can you, dig a little bit into that? Meaning, like, what metrics do you look at when you're cold calling and kind of measuring your own success?
Yeah, so I am definitely like somebody who's obsessed with data, just to like track what I'm doing. There's like a bunch of different numbers. Um, At Panda Doc, it's sort of changed in terms of like what my targets are over time, just because um like there's been a like over time you need to qualify a little bit more with my own development. But I would say like I was always checking on the call numbers, the successful call percentage, so that I knew how many, I guess, calls it would take on average for me to be successful, um, if I were to just keep at the rate that I was doing. But also there was a few more. I definitely like qualified meetings is something that I always know how many I have. Um, and yeah, I would just say that essentially I would always aim for two or three by the end of the day. Um, and obviously there's situations that come up where you get no showed. So always shooting for a little bit higher in a role where there's so much rejection. Like you touched on resilience. I think that everybody who's ever been a top performer as an SDR, maybe in sales in general, has resilience. So yeah.
That was an awesome answer, man. No, because I think, like you mentioned, a very important topic here as well, which is qualified meetings. And I think, not enough of people talk about what a qualified meeting actually is. Now, companies differently kind of define what a qualified opportunity or qualified meeting is, but like, what would you describe a qualified opportunity like?
Yeah, I mean, it could, I guess, change. I like it's such a like layered answer that I'm afraid to just say one thing. But I would just say like a qualified opportunity is when there's pain, and or in addition, when it's ready to move. Like anybody could talk any person in their role into checking out a tech product. So over time, I mean, I would definitely at the beginning, whoever I would get on the phone, they would either have to hang up on me or they were taking a meeting in their calendar. Um, so yeah, now it's just you have to do vetting on your own end as an SDR. Um, don't say yes to everything. I did it and it was wrong. So yeah, I guess like it's a difficult question to just answer directly, but those two key pieces are good to aim for is when it's ready to move and when there's pain.
For sure, and I would actually, agree 100% with with both of those. This is how I came across you, or rather, you as a person, and your profile. I saw you on LinkedIn. You're pretty active there. I would say you're actually more than active. You recently crossed a million views or impressions, if I'm not mistaken. Like, what's your strategy there? Why are you active on LinkedIn so much?
Yeah, so I first started posting because I thought it would help me hit my number. And also my manager at the time is pretty big influencer himself. Jed Marley, look him up, follow him. That's my dude. But so I sort of started and I sort of realized like after I posted a few times that one, it wasn't like scary at all. Like, I don't care what people are thinking about me posting on LinkedIn. Like, it's job oriented, so it's cool. But over time, I've sort of realized that the more I do it, the more people want to come back. And a lot, I've been getting, there was one moment where things sort of shifted when I made a post about my story of being unemployed, and people started reaching out to me, and just like for with feedback or helpful tactics. And I've sort of realized over time, like the more people that I've connected with, the more people want to help me. And um, I post these days, like I'll post anything. Today I posted a ridiculous thought about a horoscope, like get sending your prospect their horoscope and adding you should buy Panda Doc at the end. But so I would like I think it's a very like friendly platform, and like people overthink it. Like just post, be yourself, and like meet people. It's like it'll help with your job, you know? There's a lot of reasons, but I enjoy it. So I might have ventured away from the actual question right there, but um those
No,
are my
amazing. Awesome, awesome, awesome. And I mean, I usually, whenever I have a guest that is actually active on LinkedIn, I usually like to ask the question why, and what's the outcome? What are you getting from it? And I see that there is really a consistency there, which is, it kind of started off as something, whatever, it doesn't really have a point. And then as they progressed as a creator on LinkedIn, things started to kind of change, and they started seeing, or rather you guys started seeing, impact that you're making either to other people or how the network was making an impact to yourselves. And I think we can all agree that it's a very powerful way of expressing yourself, both like inbound and outbound, meaning giving and receiving. So at least one good reason to be there and be active. So yeah, I mean, this has been pretty cool. We're kind of winding down to the end, but I'm still kind of trying to figure out, like, what is that secret sauce? What is it that's making you really successful today?
I would just say that I'm looser than the average person. Like, I'm a loose goose. Like, I'm one of the loosest gooses there is in the world. No, but I just am really like myself throughout the day. I'll be like on group meetings, I'll be like silly. I think people get annoyed with me sometimes for that. But like whenever I'm on the phone with people, I am really trying to always think about what I would be thinking if I was in their shoes. Um, Maybe it's just an impulse that I've developed over time being a human, but I think people obsess over things like scripts and accurate information and data and forget that they're having conversations. I think that like making a joke in a conversation, just having the comfort and like just being not uptight the whole time, it will help you. Like let yourself go, be yourself, because the more comfortable you feel, probably the more successful you will be.
Okay, that's an awesome way of looking at things, and I think that's very valuable to the audience here as well, because that kind of it's what makes you unique, but still something that people can take in and try to implement in their day to day. And so, speaking of which, what is one thing that you would kind of give as an advice to people who are either trying to break into tech or have become an SDR recently?
Yeah, I would say one, don't be afraid to fail. Like worst case is you get rejected in an interview like me, or you get hung up on the phone. Like there really nothing matters. There's no consequences. It's kind of funny. One of my like mentors at Panda Doc once said that to me, and I just keep saying it. Nothing matters. But two, also like think like find a culture and an environment that works for you. I would be wrong to not mention the fact that I've learned from some awesome, fantastic, phenomenal salespeople. Um, mentors of mine that haven't asked anything from me, and I would definitely say that having, like, others around me being supported has been a critical element of my success. So don't try to do it all yourself, I guess.
That's amazing. Well, that kind of wraps up the episode for today. Alex, you've been an amazing guest. I thank you very much for sharing your story and sharing your wins and your failures with the audience. I think a lot of people can relate to that. And thanks for being awesome. You're just a huge ball of awesome energy. So thanks for that. And thanks for giving an awesome example, man.
Thank you for having me, man. It's been such a pleasure.
Awesome. Awesome. I guess I'll see you around on LinkedIn, I guess.
Yeah, tell whoever's listening to this, follow your boy on LinkedIn, Alex Nelson with a shark emoji after. It's not a
That's right.
dolphin. Some people think it's a dolphin. It's not a dolphin.
That's right. That's right. I'll post all your contacts in the description so people can follow you. And guys, please do. Alex, I'll see you around.
Thank you for tuning in to the SDR Hire podcast, the only podcast exclusively focused on SDRs, where successful salespeople share about their hiring stories and sales adventures straight from the trenches. If you found this useful, go ahead and share it with someone else you know is trying to break into tech or land their next SDR gig. You can find SDR Hire on all major podcast platforms as well as YouTube. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and catch you in the next episode.